The familiar scent of leather polish and motor oil filled my garage as I carefully worked the chainwes over the gleaming hood of my 1956 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing. The silver paint reflected the afternoon light like a mirror, making the car look almost alive. This was my newest restoration project, and after 8 months of painstaking work, he was finally ready. Still wasting time with your junk cars, I see. I didn't need to turn around to know it was my sister Victoria. Her designer heels clicked against the concrete floor of my garage, each step dripping with disdain. These junk cars are worth more than your entire wardrobe, Vic, I replied, continuing to polish. Even that Hermes bag you're carrying. She sniffed, adjusting said bag on her arm. Please, this bag is a classic. Those cars are just old. I finally turned to face her. Victoria stood there in all her glory. Perfectly styled hair, immaculate makeup, outfit probably worth more than most people's monthly salary. Ever since she'd started dating James Winchester II, heir to the Winchester Industries fortune, she'd become even more insufferable than usual. What brings you to my humble garage? I asked, knowing she never visited without a reason. Mom wanted me to remind you about dinner tonight, though I don't know why you'd want to come looking like that. She gestured at my work clothes, spotted with grease and polish. I glanced down at my worn jeans and vintage mechanic's shirt. Some of us actually work for a living, Vic. Tinkering with old cars isn't work, Lucy. It's a hobby. A weird, expensive hobby that's eating up your inheritance. She walked around the Mercedes, her heels uncomfortably close to the pristine paint. Do you know what I did with my inheritance? I invested it, like a grown-up. I bit back a retort. Victoria had invested her inheritance in a designer boutique that was hemorrhaging money. But Daddy kept bailing her out, though in her mind, she was a successful businesswoman. The wedding planning is going amazingly, by the way, she continued, not waiting for my response. James's mother introduced me to the most fabulous wedding planner. She did the British royal wedding. How nice for you. We're looking at a $2 million budget. The venue alone is $500,000. She paused, examining her manicure. Of course you wouldn't understand that kind of thing. You spend all your money on these relics. I ran my hand along the Mercedes's fender. This relic was worth $1.8 million after restoration, but Victoria had never bothered to learn anything about classic cars. To her, anything old was worthless unless it had a designer label. You know, she said, her voice taking on that fake sympathetic tone I hated. James has some friends in finance. They could help you invest what's left of your money in something sensible, before you waste it all on more junk cars. I straightened up, finally meeting her eyes. These cars aren't junk, Victoria. This Mercedes, it's one of only 1,400 ever made. That Jaguar E-Type over there, original 1961 flat floor, outside bonnet lock. And that Aston Martin DB5. James Bond himself couldn't get his hands on one this pristine. She rolled her eyes. God, listen to yourself. You sound just like Dad used to before he got sick. Always going on about carburetor this and chassis that. So boring. The mention of Dad's stung. He taught me everything I knew about classic cars, spending weekends in this very garage teaching me how to restore them. Victoria had never been interested, preferring to spend time at the country club with Mom. At least I'm honoring his legacy, I said quietly. By becoming a grease monkey? Please. She checked her phone, probably looking at wedding details. Dad built a successful investment firm. That's a legacy. This, she waved dismissively at my collection. This is just you playing with toys because you can't handle a real job. I turned back to the Mercedes, not wanting her to see how much her words hurt. Dad had understood my passion for classic cars. He'd seen it as more than just collecting. It was about preserving history, about bringing beauty back to life. Anyway, Victoria continued, the wedding is in 3 months. Mom insists you be a bridesmaid, though God knows why. Try not to embarrass me in front of James's family. They're very particular about appearances. Heaven forbid I show up covered in grease, I muttered. Just try to be normal for once. She headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and the dress is pink. Try not to clash with it. After she left, I sank onto my work stool, surrounded by my beloved cars. The garage had always been my sanctuary, but lately it felt like the rest of the family was closing in. Mom had started dropping hints about settling down. and finding a real career. Victoria never missed a chance to compare her perfect life with my waste of potential. Even our younger brother Mike, fresh out of business school, had started lecturing me about diversifying my investments. None of them understood what these cars meant to me. Each one had a story, a history that deserved to be preserved. The Mercedes had once belonged to a Hollywood legend. The Jaguar had raced at Le Mans. The Aston Martin, well, that one was special. I walked over to it, running my fingers along its perfect silver birch paintwork. Dad and I had started restoring it together before the cancer took him. It was the last project we worked on, and I'd spent 2 years finishing it alone, determined to make it exactly as he'd envisioned. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Don't forget dinner. Wear something decent. James's parents will be there. Great. Another evening of watching Victoria parade her perfect life while everyone gave me concerned looks. I could already hear the conversations. Such a shame about Lucy. She had such potential. Just like her father with those cars. I grabbed my keys. Regular car keys, not classic ones. As much as I loved my collection, I wasn't stupid enough to drive a $1 million car to dinner. My restored 1969 Corvette Stingray was my daily driver, worth enough to impress real car enthusiasts, but not so much that I worried about parking it on the street. As I got ready for dinner, I couldn't help but think about Victoria's wedding. $2 million for one day seemed insane to me. That kind of money could restore 5 or 6 classic cars, preserving pieces of automotive history for future generations. But that was Victoria, all show, no substance. Everything had to be the biggest, the most expensive, the most impressive. Her engagement ring alone cost more than most people's houses. I chose a simple black dress for dinner, one that Victoria would probably call boring but Dad would have appreciated. He always said true class didn't need to shout. The drive to my parents' house gave me time to think. Victoria's words about Dad's legacy kept echoing in my mind. She was right about one thing. He had built a successful investment firm. But she'd forgotten the most important lesson he taught us. Value isn't always about money. What she saw as junk cars, Dad had seen as works of art, pieces of history that deserved to be preserved. Each restoration project was a challenge, a puzzle to be solved, a story to be continued. I pulled up to the massive Georgian mansion where I'd grown up. Victoria's Bentley was already there, along with an imposing Rolls-Royce that must belong to James's parents. My Corvette, despite being a classic itself, looked almost humble in comparison. Taking a deep breath, I prepared myself for another evening of subtle jabs and not-so-subtle criticism. But as I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed with a notification that would change everything. It was from Barrett Jackson, the prestigious classic car auction house. Subject line: urgent, regarding 1937 Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic authentication. My heart stopped. The Type 57 SC Atlantic was the holy grail of classic cars. Only 4 were ever made, and one had been missing for decades. Surely they couldn't mean. But that would have to wait. Right now, I had to survive dinner with the future in-laws of the sister who thought I was throwing my life away on worthless old cars. If only she knew just how wrong she was about worthless. Dinner was exactly what I expected. Victoria held court at the center of the table, detailing her extravagant wedding plans while James's parents, the esteemed Mr. and Mrs. Winchester, nodded approvingly. Every detail was calculated to impress, from the imported Italian marble dance floor to the Michelin-starred chef flown in from Paris. And of course, we're having the ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Victoria gushed. Though the waiting list was terribly long, James's mother made a few calls. Mrs. Winchester, dripping in old money refinement, smiled indulgently. Well, one must maintain certain standards. Speaking of which, Victoria mentioned you work with cars. The way she said cars made it sound like a particularly distasteful disease. I restore classic automobiles, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Currently working on a 1956 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing. Mr. Winchester's head snapped up. A Gullwing? Original engine? Completely numbers matching, I said. Even found the original toolkit. For the first time all evening, genuine interest crossed his face. Those are extraordinarily rare. The last one at auction went for. James, darling, Victoria interrupted. Tell them about the string quartet we've booked. But I'd seen it. the flash of real respect in Mr. Winchester's eyes. He knew exactly what a gullwing was worth. After dinner, while Victoria was showing off her engagement photos, I slipped away to read the email from Barrett Jackson. My hands trembled as I opened it. Dear Ms. Harrison, your father's documentation regarding the missing 1937 Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic has been verified. We believe the car may have been located in a private collection in Argentina. Given your father's extensive research and your own expertise in pre-war automobiles, we would like to engage your services in authenticating the vehicle. If verified, this would be the most significant automotive discovery of the century. Please contact us urgently. I sat down hard on the stairs, my mind racing. Dad had spent years tracking rumors of the missing Atlantic, following leads across continents. Before he died, he'd shared his research with me, making me promise to continue the search. What are you doing out here? I looked up to find James Winchester standing in the hallway, 2 glasses of scotch in hand. He offered me one. Thanks. I took a sip. 30-year-old Macallan, of course. Victoria says you're wasting your inheritance on old cars, he said, sitting beside me. But I saw your reaction when my father mentioned the gullwing. You understand their true value, don't you? I studied him carefully. They're not just cars. They're pieces of history. He nodded. My grandfather was a collector, had one of the finest automotive libraries in the country. I spent hours there as a kid, reading about legendary cars like the Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic. My heart skipped. The Atlantic. The Holy Grail, he smiled. Only 4 ever made. 1 lost to history. Some say it's worth over $100 million, if it still exists. 3 weeks later, I was in Argentina, standing in a climate-controlled garage near Buenos Aires. The Barrett Jackson team waited anxiously as I examined every inch of the dust-covered car before us. The body number matched Dad's research. The engine stampings were correct for the period. Even the unique riveted seams along the body, the Atlantic's most distinctive feature, were exactly as they should be. It's real, I finally announced. This is the Lost Atlantic. The discovery made headlines worldwide. Classic car forums exploded with excitement. Collectors and museums began a bidding war before the car was even officially listed for auction. And suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to me. The girl who wasted her inheritance on old cars was now the expert who had authenticated the most valuable car in history. I returned home to find my garage surrounded by reporters. Victoria was waiting inside, her perfect composure cracking. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded. Do you know how this makes me look? The Winchesters can't stop talking about you. About that, I said calmly. Barrett Jackson is paying me a substantial authentication fee, and I've been offered a position heading their new restoration division. She waved dismissively. Whatever. I need your help. The wedding is in 3 weeks, and James's mother keeps talking about family traditions and something old. She practically sneered at my vintage Cartier bracelet. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. For all her designer clothes and perfect manners, she was terrified of not measuring up to the Winchester family standards. The Atlantic's first owner was French royalty, I said quietly. The car will be at Barrett Jackson's showroom next week for a private viewing. Very exclusive guest list. Victoria's eyes widened as she understood. You could get us in. I could arrange for your wedding photos to be taken with the most valuable car ever discovered. The one your grease monkey sister authenticated. 2 days before the wedding, Victoria's bridal party arrived at Barrett Jackson's showroom. The Atlantic sat under perfect lighting, its blue-black paint gleaming like liquid metal. Mrs. Winchester actually gasped. Is that the Lost Atlantic? I confirmed. Worth approximately $114 million, though some say priceless. Victoria stared at the car, then at me. For the first time, I saw something new in her eyes. Respect. The photos are incredible, she said later, showing me the proofs. The Atlantic's graceful lines made even her $100,000 wedding dress look understated. You know, she added hesitantly, Dad would have loved this. He always said you were the only one who really understood his passion for cars. He told me once that true value isn't about price tags, I replied. It's about history, craftsmanship, and the stories these cars tell. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, she finally said, for calling your cars junk, for not understanding. On the wedding day, as Victoria walked down the aisle of St. Patrick's Cathedral, I noticed something had changed. She still looked perfect, but there was a new confidence in her step. She found her something old, not in a piece of jewelry or a family heirloom, but in understanding that real value doesn't always come in obvious packages. The Barrett-Jackson job meant traveling the world, discovering and authenticating more pieces of automotive history. Victoria and James became regular visitors to my garage, where James would spend hours discussing restoration techniques while Victoria learned to tell the difference between a Mercedes Gullwing and a regular 300 SL. 6 months after the wedding, I received a package from Victoria. Inside was a framed photo from her wedding day, not the formal portrait, but a candid shot of us laughing together next to the Atlantic. The note read, "To my sister, who taught me that the most valuable things in life aren't always the newest or the most expensive. They're the ones with the best stories. Love, Vic." I hung the photo in my garage right next to Dad's old workbench. Sometimes, when I'm restoring a car, I look at it and smile, remembering how a worthless passion for old cars led to the discovery of the century. And when Victoria visits now, she doesn't wear her designer heels. Instead, she borrows a pair of my work boots and helps me polish the Gullwing, eager to hear the stories behind each car in my collection. The Atlantic went on to break every auction record in history, but its real value wasn't in its price tag. It was in the way it brought a family together, teaching us all that true worth isn't always visible at first glance. Sometimes it's hidden under decades of dust in an Argentine garage. Sometimes it's in a sister's newfound respect. And sometimes it's in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that Dad was right all along. About the cars, about me, and about what really matters in life. Every time I open my garage now, I'm reminded that the greatest discoveries aren't always about finding lost treasures. Sometimes they're about finding understanding in unexpected places, about bridging the gaps between people who see the world differently. And sometimes they're about proving that a grease monkey with a passion for old cars can end up teaching her perfect sister the true meaning of value.